I am Tafari Mugeri, and I am the Director of Organization for the African Socialist International Africa region. I would like to welcome you all, comrades and friends and allies of the African Revolution. We are live, and this is a program of the African Socialist International, and is entitled Make Belgium Pay Reparations. This is going to be a very exciting event. I would like to encourage you to go ahead and share this live, like, and be ready to engage, because we have a very dynamic, our panel. We are featuring the chairman of the African Socialist International, Omali Yeshitela, the chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee, Penny Hess, and the Secretary General of the African Socialist International, Luwezi Kinshasa. So please go ahead and share widely, share in the groups, share on your wall, share to the individual that you're friends with, so that people can have access to this, because the topic today is very dynamic, and especially when it has to do with the fact that African people, wherever we are right now, we are still fighting for self-determination. We're fighting to free Africa, because Africa is still colonized. Africa is still not free today. So we have to be able to talk about Congo, and we have to talk about Belgium, because the revolution of the 1960s has not been completed. And I am quite honored individually as a person right now to be hosting, to be the program director for this dynamic program. So I would like to go ahead and firstly to go ahead and be able to welcome the Secretary General of the African Socialist International, Luwezi Kinshasa. He'll be the first speaker in this program, and he'll be presenting on Belgium's war against African resistance in Congo. So SG Luwezi, I'd like to welcome you. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Director Tafari, thank you so much for this introduction. I'm also equally excited to be present at this event, and I think this is a part of the struggle we're talking about to change the world. Uhuru. So, what I want to start from, it's we know every time we talk about Belgium, the name that comes to a lot of people's mind is the name of King Leopold II. That's the name that comes to people's mind. But he was not alone. He was the head of colonial enterprise, and people like Stanley, um, um, Henry Morton Stanley, a British colonizer, definitely worked for King Leopold II. In fact, it was him that contributed so very much in building uh, this work of Leopold II. So I'm Luwezi Kinshasa, as Comrade Director Tafara said. I'm the African Socialist International Secretary General, and this is an organization that's being created by Chairman Yeshitela to complete the Black Revolution of the 60s. And this is really critical for people to understand that. And I'm able to talk to you as a member of the African Socialist International because I met many years ago, some 30 years ago, I met Chairman's book, Reparations Now, in Paris. And today we're talking of make Belgium pay reparation. You can see the connection. So it's really, really profound. So I want to use this opportunity to salute Chairman Omali for laying down this vision of reparation that today has put me on this path. And I want to say, I also want to salute the other panelists who is going to speak after me, Chairwoman Penny S, and all of you who have joined this meeting. Um, and as I said, it's a historical meeting. It's not just an event. It's a meeting to build the capacity of the African working class to get reparation, but to complete the Black Revolution, to unite the Black working class around the world. This is really a profound meeting we're doing today. So I want to just start by saying uh, colonization of Africa didn't start in the Berlin Conference because Leopold II became significant because of the Berlin Conference. But the reality is that Belgium was created in 1830, and it was created as a part of a redividing Europe. And if you know what Belgium is, one part of it speaks what they call Flemish, which is Dutch. Another part of it speaks what they call Wallon, which is French. So basically, it's France and Holland. And you know, France and Holland are not newcomers; they are bourgeois state, new bourgeois nation state, uh, created by our colonial enslavement. So when Leopold II come on the scene looking for a colony, as if he never seen a colony before, when Belgium is a creation of our colonization. And I just want to say that really for people who are listening to understand that colonization of Africa did not begin in 1884, 1885 at the Berlin Conference. It started 1415 when the Europeans attacked Africa. So 4 centuries of colonial enslavement already created Europe, created everything they call bourgeois state today. Britain, creation of our colonial enslavement. Germany, United States, Canada, Brazil. There is no country in Europe today as we know it that existed as we know it before 1415, before the colonial enslavement of Africans. This is really fundamental for people to really understand that. We're just talking of industrialization of Europe, which is also another product of colonial enslavement of Africans for 4 centuries in the Americas, in particular, that created industrialization. And what they call Berlin Conference is basically the consequence of that. Now, Europeans now needed access to the raw material for Africa. That's why they talk about colonization. But colonization started well before, centuries before what they call normally colonialism. So it started well before slavery, how they call it, is colonialism. We just want to be clear on that. It's colonialism, and as a foundation of success of Europe, and so on. And also, Belgian states, uh, what it did, they gave Leopold II gave the job of going to Africa to grab land, to force treaties with the local traditional leaders throughout what they call Congo today at gunpoint. So there was no trade, just like when they say slave trade. No, they didn't trade for African people. That was colonialism, as I said. And also when Leopold II went to Congo using Henry Stanley, Morton Stanley, it was also at gunpoint. So basically, these so-called explorer, which is not, there is no explorer, they're all colonialist agent. He shot his way down the Congo River to begin to grab land, impose treaties on African people. Uh, and that's the way basically Leopold II was able to acquire land and control part of Congo. Another argument they say to us that Leopold II was motivated to fight slavery, particularly they say Arab slavery in the Congo and in Africa, which is basically a lie. This is not to say we were not enslaved by Arabs. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying basically that them going to Congo to end slavery, that is a lie because Europeans, just as I say, they've been colonizing us for already 4 centuries. So how can they say they're going to Congo to end slavery, which as we know is an expression of colonialism? So that was a lie. And by the way, the French in 1832 already occupied Algeria. So all these stuff is not true. It's just a lie, just to justify why they have to colonize the rest of Africa. Now, Leopold II, uh, the wealth he was able to acquire in the Congo, uh, he began with getting ivory and getting rubber. And you have to know that this was done with no investments or no machineries or anything like that. So they stole ivory. We had millions of elephants. So they killed elephants. They took all the stocks of ivory they can take in the Congo. They took it. They did not produce it because ivory tusks, tusks for elephant didn't come from Europe. So they stole all this and they got us to work to collect rubber. And I said, there was no investment, there was no capital coming from Europe. So it was basically getting capital from us, just like what they call, what we call colonial slavery was a start-up capital for Europe. So what we're looking at is a continuity of startup capital. They come to Africa, get the capital as a human labor or as raw material and things like that. So it was really the beginning of explosion of wealth for Leopold II and things like that. And I have just some example I'm going to take from you. This book, it was Adam O'Shiel wrote it. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but King Leopold, Leopold's Ghost. So on the page, for example, 160, let us give you some explanation on how Belgium basically was making huge profit because of colonialism. Remember, it's a start-up capital. That's how Europe got its capital through colonialism. So here, basically, it says that there's a company at the time called Anglo-Belgian India Rubber. So that is the Belgian and the British are together. And they call it exploration. Of course, exploration is a theft of our resources in the Congo. So RB spent 1.35 franc per kilo. And remember, they didn't pay that to us. They're paying the colonial agent in the Congo. They're paying the white man in the Congo. They're not paying us. So 1.25 franc per kilo to harvest rubber in the Congo and ship it to the company's headquarters at Antwerp in Belgium, where it was sold for prices that sometimes reached 10 franc per kilo, a profit of more than 700%. So by 1898, the price of Arbe's stock was nearly 30 times what it had been 6 years earlier. Between 1890 and 1904, total rubber earnings increased 96 times over. By the turn of the century, the État independent du Congo had become far and away the most profitable colony in Africa. And the profit came swiftly because transportation cost aside, harvesting wild rubber required no cultivation, no fertilizer, no capital investment in expensive equipment. It required only labor. So you can see how Belgium getting rich. They didn't have to invest anything, just putting Africans work us to death and the things like that. Now, if I go on to page 161, I think this is really important. Here, one of the force public officer, force public is the army created by the King Leopold II. And he says, the native does not like making rubber. He must be compelled to do it. The native doesn't like making rubber. You must be compelled to do it. So basically, the Europeans coming to Africa, we had a better way of, of life. We did not need to collect rubber. We had enough to live on, but they have to force Africans to collect rubber. And this is how they do it. This officer's method was to arrive at canoes at the village, the inhabitants of which invariably bolted on their arrival. The soldiers were then landed and commenced looting, taking all the chickens, grain, out of their houses. After this, they attacked the natives until able to seize the women. These women were kept as hostages until the chief of the district brought in the required number of kilograms of rubber. The rubber having been brought, the women were sold back to the owners for a couple of goats apiece, and so it continued from village to village until the requisite amount of rubber had been collected. If you were a male villager, resisting the order to gather rubber could mean death for your wife too. So that's colonialism in action, and this is the way Leopold II was able to amass in a short period of time incredible wealth through killings and forced labor. So there are many examples of women being killed, being raped, their hands being cut off, all those things. That's basically what Belgium was doing. But we resisted that. We had many struggles to stop the Belgian. And there are lots of examples. I'll take just a few. We had in South Congo, there is a leader basically with the name of Mulume Nyama at the cave of Chamakele. It is in Katanga. Katanga is where the copper and the cobalt come from. He refused to work for the colonizers. He mobilized the people not to work for the colonizers. The Belgian decided to attack Mulume Nyama and his people, and they were forced to hide in a cave. And they lay siege on the cave. They put fire at the entrance of the cave to smoke them out, but they will refuse to come out. For 3 months, they refused to come out. And finally, when the colonizer launched the assault in the cave, they found at least 178 bodies. People who prefer to die than to surrender to the colonizers. And this is one example. Another example
5 minutes.
I'll give you is there was something known as Yeshitela revolts. It's basically the soldiers who rebelled against colonizers because they could not accept the punishments they received on a daily basis in the hands of colonizers. And the leader was Kandolo. And the Kandolo mobilized a lot of black soldiers, and they fought the Belgian for 13 years, killing the Belgian colonizers and killing also the black soldiers that the colonizer mobilized against those who rebelled. And Kandolo was not alone. He had other comrades who fought together. Yamba Yamba is one, Kimpuki is another one. I'm giving all these names because today in the Congo, names of those who resisted have been, they don't exist. Nobody talks about those who resisted in those early years. And I think it's going to be important for us to celebrate those who resist, to show examples of resistance so we can mobilize our people. There was another resistance. I'll take 2 examples here. You might have heard of Simon Kimbangu. Simon Kimbangu, I believe, was a Garveyite because he emerged during Garvey time, and he mobilized people against Belgian colonialism. He said we should not pay the tax, and that the black people will be free. And he was arrested, and he was taken to Lubumbashi. And for 30 years, he was kept in jail. He died in jail. He refused to surrender. And that's just one example. And also there's another example. In 1941, there was a strike in mining areas in Katanga. And that's 1941, when the Belgians supposedly were fighting against Hitler. But in 1941, there was a strike. The workers were demanding pay rise because the conditions for working just worsened because war's efforts of the Belgian was passed on African workers. And after many negotiations, the governor of Katanga himself, Amour Maron, he shot dead the leader of the strike. And the colonial army opened the fire, and at least 50 workers were shot. And that's in 1941. In 1931, there was a colonizers in the name of a ballot, and the ballot was like a tax collector, the one who goes and forces Africans to pay tax and things like that. And in southern of Congo, in a place called Kwango and Kwilu in the Bandundu province, there was a revolt. It's known in history as Bapende revolt, because we killed the colonizer, we killed ballots, and the colonizer decided to punish our people. So we're talking about like 500 people killed. And we're saying all this because we know the Belgians looted Congo, they go rich of Congo, they killed our people. So we're demanding reparation, not just for the wealth they took from us, but the killings they did, the 10 million people they killed, all these people who resisted, who died, we want reparation for them. And quickly, you also know about how the Belgians killed Patrice Lumumba. Very quickly, what I want to say is that the Belgian conceded independence, and a celebration took place on the 30th of June, like today, 30th of June. Within a week, the Belgian attacked our independence. They attacked the Lumumba's government. They organized secessions, like the well-known Katanga secessions. It was no secession of African people, like people from Katanga say, you want to secede from Congo. It was not like that. The Belgian got a puppet jumping others, and they said, you're going to do secessions, we're going to write a constitution for you, we're going to train an army for you, and the budget of Congo, the money is supposed to go to the central government, we're going to give it to you. The Belgian created the secession in Katanga. They also created the secession in Kasai so they can weaken the government of Patrice Lumumba. They also, with the United States government, they worked to organize a constitutional coup of Kasavubu. 2 weeks later, they worked with Mobutu to make a coup against the government of Patrice Lumumba. So the Belgians attacked our movement, and today they are responsible of the situation that we're living in today. And the genocide is happening today because of the proxy neocolonialism taking place, cannot be separated with the genocide of Leopold II. If we go reparation straight away, because of the genocide of Leopold II, I'm sure the genocide that's happening today in the Congo will not have happened. So we have to get the reparations. We have to mobilize the people for that genocide. Also for the current genocide is a continuity of the same struggle, before independence and after independence, and is a part of the worldwide movement of African people everywhere to get reparation. And this is going to be a powerful international movement of Black people need to build. So reparation is given to all of us united in one struggle, in one direction, and get to reparation is our basically mobilization, our struggle, our unity, our strength, our power, that will force Belgium to give reparation. So I just want to say my time probably is up. Let me know if my time is up, so I don't have to go on. I have a lot of things I didn't share with you, but
Uhuru, yes, it is. It is.
Yeah, I'll stop here because a lot of things I didn't share with you, but this is the process. So we're gonna have opportunity to go back to other things I didn't say. Uhuru.
Uhuru S. Luwezi, long live Lumumba. And as African people, indeed, we charge genocide. We charge Western imperialism with genocide that has been committed against African people in Congo and Africa and the rest of the world. And I think I think there's someone, I don't remember who exactly said that Europeans didn't only colonize us as Africans, but they also, like, on top of that, colonized information as well. So it's always good for us to come and get information and debunk some of the misinformation we've been given, like some of the things you said here about the justification for colonizing us as African people by the Belgians and the rest of the Europeans. So I learned a lot as to Luwezi, a new concept that I've not heard before, proxy neocolonialism. Would really like to hear more about that. And I just want to be able to move the program, but still encourage everyone to share this widely. Make your comments there, whether you're on YouTube, on the Zoom, or on Facebook, and also invite people to come and watch the program, because we are still going to have more discussions right here. So the next, I would like to welcome another dynamic leader or panelist here from the Uhuru Solidarity Movement and the African People Solidarity Committee, and this is the chairwoman of the APSC, which is an organization of colonizers or people from the colonizer nation, and these are white people who are in unity, who are in solidarity with the struggle of African people for self-determination and total liberation. And she's going to speak on taking responsibility for Leopold II and Belgium's colonial violence in Africa. So I'd like to welcome you, Chairwoman Penny Hess.
Uhuru, thank you so much, Director Tafari. And I just really want to start by saying it is a great honor to be on this program today. I want to express my profound unity with the incredible presentation just given by the Secretary General of the African Socialist International, Luwezi, Kinshasa. And I want to express my unity and honor to be on this program with Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the leader of the African People's Socialist Party, the leader of the African Revolution, and our leadership, also Deputy Chair Onizine Yeshitela, and all of the leadership and members of the African People's Socialist Party, that the African People's Solidarity Committee, which I have the honor of being able to chair, is an organization of white people, of the colonizer, that was formed by the African People's Socialist Party, and that works directly under the party's leadership, accountable to the party for everything that we do. Our mandate is to go behind enemy lines, to go into the colonizer population wherever we are, to win other white people to recognize that we sit on the pedestal of the oppression of African people, the colonization of African people, the genocide, terror, and colonialism of African people and the oppressed peoples on the planet Earth, and that all white people owe reparations to African people. And that's what our work is. And we want to just really salute this event and express our unity with that colonialism is the critical question in the world today for white people, as well as for African people and everybody else on the planet. And that we recognize that African people have been forced to live, to produce and reproduce life for white people for the last 600 years. So, I want to start by reiterating or just, as well as uniting with some of the points that Secretary General Luwezi put out, because it is important for us to say it, for us to recognize what it is that provides a way of life for all white people, that the democracy, the prosperity, the potential for our lives is directly related to the incredible suffering of African people and indigenous peoples around the world. That is in a relationship. That is what is parasitic capitalism, that capitalism requires, as Chairman Omali Yeshitela has said, the colonization of African people in order for white people to have the ability to live the lifestyles that we take for granted. And that, as S.G. Luwezi had said, that already by the year 1415, Portugal was assaulting Africa, as Chairman Omali Yeshitela has scientifically investigated, and began stealing African human beings as well as the gold and minerals of Africa. And that it was this that created the greatest explosion of wealth ever experienced on the planet up until that time. That already by the 15th century, Europe was creating plantations built on the stolen labor of African people, with products being refined and used by Europeans. And as the chairman shows, that this is what brought white people out of the depths of feudalism and into life as the colonizers and the benefactors of the wealth and power of capitalism. And by the end of the 1400s, Spain had sent the colonizer and the perpetrator of genocide known as Columbus to the Americas, and began the process of genocide and theft of the land and resources of the indigenous people in North and South America and the Caribbean that has configured the world that we experience today. And that, again, it is under these conditions that white people have access to prosperity, democracy, social wealth, based on the enslavement of African people, the stolen land of the indigenous people, and the colonization of the majority of the people on the planet Earth. And in 1885 and 86, as Secretary General Luwezi said, all the powers of Europe came together. That was not the beginning of colonialism. As he said, they met, including the U.S., met in Berlin, Germany, to divide up Africa for genocidal colonization, to continue the plunder and rape of Africa through direct colonial domination. And one of the biggest players in that conference was King Leopold of Belgium. And in fact, according to the Wikipedia page, the Berlin Conference was also known as the Congo Conference. Leopold came out of that conference with a huge swath of Africa as his personal playground, an area 76 times larger than Belgium. And it was an area of Africa that has the Congo River, the deepest river on the entire planet, and has every possible resource: gold, silver, diamonds, coltan, which is used now, uranium, platinum, cobalt, cassiterite, and copper, ivory, rubber, and as S.G. Luwezi just said, thousands of elephants for ivory, and beautiful land, just incredible amount of resources. And that the Congo, what is known as the Congo, or what Leopold called the Congo Free State, was owned by him personally. And it was turned over to the people of Belgium at his death. No, King Leopold was no abolitionist. He was a vicious colonizer responsible for the genocide of 10, 12, who knows how many millions of African people, that included rape of African women, torture, rape of children, cutting off of the hands of African people, so much so that there were mountains of hands, according to testimonies and letters written from that time. There was forced labor, heads were cut off and put on fences and posts, and every kind of torture and violence against African people. This is what Congo represented under King Leopold, and also under Belgium, with the complicity of the Belgian people. And by the time that Leopold died, he was the richest man on the planet Earth at that time. And that there was no word for genocide at that time, when African people were regularly being wiped out and exterminated by the unity of all Europeans, by Europeans all the time, every day, in every country of Africa, in every country that is now a country of Africa, in every section. And that there was no word for genocide until white people started killing other white people in Europe. And then it became a crime. Otherwise, it was accepted practice that white people would go to Europe and be part of wiping out African people to steal the resources, to live off parasitically, sucking the blood of African people. And yes, as S.G. Luwezi said, there was fierce armed resistance by African people against Leopold. And when we were in Antwerp in Belgium, we saw a statue that said, from the Belgian people, thank you, King Leopold, for giving us the Congo, because he left it to the country of Belgium at the time at his death. It was in his will. And today, white people in Belgium live in one of the richest countries on the planet Earth. And one of their favorite things to eat are chocolate hands, severed chocolate hands that are still very popular there, that are symbolic of where their wealth comes from at the expense of African people. You can order those chocolate hands on the internet, and they'll send you them from Belgium today. And that the colonizers live on the blood and suffering of African people. Colonial history is not taught in Belgium. The white left denies it, denies any responsibility of white people and white workers to African people, does not stand for reparations to African people. Also in 1960, Patrice Lumumba, as Secretary General said, became the first Prime Minister of independent Congo on this very day, on June 30th in 1960. And this was 61 years ago. And Lumumba's stand at the independence inauguration ceremony on the 30th of June, when the representative that was there from Belgium began praising Belgium's colonization, saying that Belgium had brought progress and civilization to Congo, and the elected president, Joseph Kasavubu, agreed with him. At that time, Patrice Lumumba leapt up onto the podium and gave an impassioned impromptu speech, and that was broadcast on radios and heard by the masses of African people, in which Lumumba said, quote, "For this independence of the Congo, although being proclaimed today by agreement with Belgium, an amicable country with which we are on equal terms, no Congolese worthy of the name will ever be able to forget that it was by fighting that it has been won, a day-to-day fight, an ardent and idealistic fight, a fight in which we were spared neither privation nor suffering, and for which we gave our strength and our blood." Lumumba continued, we are proud of the struggle of tears, of fire, and of blood to the depths of our being, for it was a noble and just struggle and indispensable to put an end to the humiliating slavery which was imposed on us by force, unquote. Lumumba made it clear that the resources of the Congo would be for the African people. And therefore, Lumumba was only in office until September. He was marked immediately for assassination. The U.S. CIA, U.S. President Eisenhower, President Kennedy, along with Belgium and other imperialist forces, were determined to oust, to kill, to assassinate Lumumba and get rid of them. They sent the CIA chief poisoner, Sidney Gottlieb, to Congo, who brought poisoned toothpaste, but he wasn't able to get that to Lumumba. They did everything they possibly could. In January 1961, Lumumba was murdered, beaten, shot. His body was then chopped up, put in a vat of acid. And one of the murderers got Lumumba's tooth, and Belgium says, now the king of Belgium is saying he's sorry, he's going to send the tooth back. I mean, it is truly, truly an outrage. And that, again, there was fierce resistance of African people. And then the US put in neocolonialism in the name of Mobutu, who was paid very well by the colonizers, who was also one of the wealthiest men on earth when he died. And so while colonialism has made white people rich in Belgium, it has also done the same for white people wherever we are, any place in Europe, the US, Israel, Australia, New Zealand, white people are the colonizers. The average income for Africans in Congo today is $785 a year. More than 80% of Africans in the Congo live on less than $1.25 a day. And in the richest continent on the planet Earth, today this genocide continues with the imperialist plunder of resources and US-backed proxy forces coming through Rwanda and other ways that continue to do the work of US imperialism with violent rape, murder, slaughter, mutilations, so that the US and the imperialist parasitic capitalist corporations can continue to control the coltan and diamonds and gold and all of the other resources that belong to African people. And despite the 6 centuries of plunder and genocide, Eastern Congo is still vastly rich with resources. The US estimates $24 trillion in mineral resources are still in the ground in Congo, untapped so far. That slaughter, rape, cutting off hands, and violence in Eastern Congo by proxy forces, another 10 million people were murdered, backed by Obama, Clinton, Democratic Party, child labor and mining by the hundreds of thousands, as children as young as 5 years old forced to mine the coltan for our computers and cell phones. It is an unbroken trajectory of direct colonialism that has fed our stomachs and pocketbooks. And we tell ourselves that in this savagery, we are bringing civilization to everyone else. This is colonialism. This is the primary contradiction in the world. This is, as the chairman has said, the mode of production of capitalism. This is how capitalism was born. There is colonialism in Africa and of indigenous and oppressed peoples, and inside the borders of the United States of African people and indigenous people, just as around the world. We are colonizers. It is not racism. It is not white privilege. It is a political and economic system that we are part of. We are the colonizing nation. We facilitated, united with it, carried out the violence of the US and European imperialism wherever it's been, whether it's been the lynchings in the US, uniting with police murder and mass imprisonment of African people today, or cutting off the hands of African people in Congo and just enjoying the lifestyle and the chocolate hands or life in America. We say we didn't do it, but we live off of it. All this wealth that can't even be calculated, the social wealth that we have, that African people were forced to produce and reproduce life for us for 600 years. Currently in the US alone, there's an estimated $68.4 trillion in generational wealth, in wills and inheritances ready to be passed down to the next generation of white people based on this colonial reality. That is 1 tiny percent of what is owed to African people in reparations. African people, we unite with the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, fighting for power, fighting for national liberation, fighting for Africa, which belongs to African people, fighting for the return of all its stolen resources, the value of their stolen labor, for pain and suffering, for the theft of everything, the theft of life. It all belongs to African people. Belgium owes reparations. The white population, everyone, everywhere owes reparations. A true white left. There is one thing that makes white people left, and that is under the leadership of the African Revolution and the fight for reparations, the fight against colonialism that we have to wage with our own ruling class, the white ruling class owes reparations. We have learned from the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party that this struggle of African people everywhere is an anti-colonial struggle. Their struggle is for power, for self-determination, national liberation, for the return of their land and resources. The demand for reparation is what is owed. It is not a favor. This is the basis of a new world Reparations is the true redistribution of the wealth of the world into the hands of the true working class of the world, the African working class. Make Belgium pay reparations, make US imperialism pay reparations. All white people owe reparations. This is the future for white people and the world, unity through reparations.
Uhuru comrade Penny Hess, that was really informative and really just expresses the stance of the African People's Socialist Party, as well as the African People's Solidarity Committee, the entire Uhuru movement. We are fighting against colonialism. We are united and determined to make sure that we advance this revolution and complete the Black Revolution of the 1960s, so that we can be able to reach to its final conclusion, whereby African people can be able to have access to our resources. Our resources in Congo are being plundered. Millions, tons and tons of mineral resources being looted on a daily basis by imperialism, both from the East and the West, and African people are not benefiting anything from that. So we are here as African internationalists, and we say African internationalism is a theory of practice. And right now, what I'm going to do is I am going to introduce the founder, the leader, and the person responsible for the development of this African internationalist political theory. And that is none other but than the chairman himself, Omali Yeshitela. So he's going to present on From the U.S. to Congo, One Revolution. And firstly, though, I would like to just to read a brief bio of the chairman, Omali Yeshitela, who is my leadership and the leader of the entire African nation and African revolution. And so Omali Yeshitela, he's the chairman of the African Socialist International and the African People's Socialist Party. From the day he tore down the racist mural from City Hall in St. Petersburg, Florida in 1966, Chairman Omali Yeshitela has never stopped fighting for liberation for African people everywhere. In the heat of revolutionary struggle and during years in prison for his political work, Chairman Omali Yeshitela developed the theory of African internationalism that understands the world through the eyes of the African working class. In 1968, Chairman Omali Yeshitela founded the Burning Spear newspaper, which is still published today. The chairman has authored numerous articles, pamphlets, and books. He has led countless campaigns in the name of the African working class, including the Community Control of Housing initiative that won 22,000 votes in Oakland, California in 1984, and the campaign that freed Jesse Wood, an African woman imprisoned for killing a white attempted rapist with his own gun. In 1996, the chairman mobilized a community fight back following the rebellions sparked by the police murder of 17-year-old Tyrone Lewis in St. Petersburg. Chairman Omali made reparations a household word with the International Tribunal on Reparations for African People, which was held in Brooklyn, New York in 1982, finding that African people are owed $4.1 trillion for stolen labor in the US alone. The chairman founded the International People's Democratic Uhuru movement in 1991 as a revolutionary mass organization to defend the democratic rights of the African working class. The party also launched Black Star Industries, bringing all of the economic development institutions of the party under one umbrella, creating partnerships with community members. On January 24, 2019, Chairman Omali Yeshitela was invited to Oxford University, where he participated at the Oxford Union in the Africa debate. As a consequence of his presentation, his side won the debate and the chairman received a standing ovation. This is the same place where 55 years earlier Malcolm X had spoken. Today, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, as the leader of the African Socialist International, speaks to his growing base around the world and leads the worldwide movement for the liberation of Africa and African people everywhere. Uhuru, Chairman Omali Yeshitela.
Uhuru. Thank you very much, Comrade Director Tafari. And I would also like to express my appreciation for Comrade Luwezi Kinshasa, who is the Secretary General of the African Socialist International, to Comrade Penny Hess, who has assumed responsibility for taking the African Revolution into the actual communities and of the colonizers themselves. So I want to thank all of you for bringing me on and for the introduction that I just received from Comrade Tafari. Africa, I need to say that this is not just another of the kind of social media events that we have become so accustomed to in this period. The reason that that much of our political work seems to revolve around things like social media is the success that the U.S. and the other imperial powers had in crushing the Black Revolution of the 1960s. We talk about what happened to Patrice Lumumba. We are talking about an element of that success when we talk about how Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown, how Malcolm X and a host of Black Panther Party members and others, including the co-founder of the African People's Socialist Party, this is a part of what has occurred to take the African Revolution temporarily off the radar. And the discussion that we're having on today is a discussion that's led by the party, the African People's Socialist Party, the African Socialist International, to continue the revolutionary project that was begun by people like Patrice Lumumba, by people like Nkrumah, like Sobukwe, like Malcolm X, and others around the world who fought against colonial domination of Africa and African people wherever we were located. It is important for the African People's Socialist Party, the African Socialist International, to host this discussion today on Belgium's need to pay reparations to Africa, to African people. This is not something that the African People's Socialist Party has just come up with because the question of reparations seems to be trending today. And more people are latching on to the question, some of them who do not have good intentions for Africa or for African people, but simply struggling to try and acquire resources. But the point is that in 1981, at the first Congress of the African People's Socialist Party, which was held some 9 years after our founding, the African People's Socialist Party passed a resolution calling for the creation of the African Socialist International, because we had come to understand that the African Revolution had run into its limitations as long as we were trying to pursue the revolution within the borders that had been created by the colonizers. So we we resolved to build the African Socialist International. And then in the following year, 1982, we organized the first tribunal on reparations for African people. This said for African people in the U.S., because that was where we had access to, primarily to the political base that we needed to kick this off. But even though we said for African people in the U.S., among the judges, the international judges for this tribunal were Africans from the Caribbean, Africans from what they now refer to as South Africa, Africans who spoke and participated, who lived in England, Africans who were from Congo and the Congolese National Liberation Front. It was limited in terms of the reparations demand but it included Africans from various places around the world, recognizing that we are engaged in a single struggle. And this, again, was a tribunal that occurred just the year following the resolution calling for the creation of the African Socialist International. The fact is that on the day following the conclusion of the first tribunal, World Tribunal on reparations for African people, the following day, we had the first meeting of those in the process of trying to build and develop the African Socialist International. That meeting was, again, attended by Africans from Congo, Africans from what they call South America, Africans from the Caribbean, Africans from Senegal, Africans who lived in France. The process of building this revolutionary project was something that we took very seriously, and we understood early on that we were going to have to overturn these borders that separated Africans from each other and from our resources. So this was a critical moment in the history. And so when we talk about reparations today, we're not talking about something that because it is trending. Fact of the matter is, on the year following the first tribunal, I traveled throughout Europe. I did a tour of Europe. I traveled to an international African book fair where Africans from various parts of the world were located, and we were promoting at that time, passing out literature and promoting the reparations demand. And it's at this time that we brought the book with us, Reparations Now, that Comrade Luwezi just referenced earlier on in his presentation, that attracted different people, Africans from various parts of the world, to the reparations demand. And we began to see at that point actions being taken, even though only a few in Europe, in England, Birmingham in particular. There were activists who took on the reparations demand and began agitation in the streets of Birmingham, England, and France. In particular, where I spoke to various meetings of Africans who were exiled in France, and sometimes workers who were in France as guest workers, speaking to them around the reparations demand and about the need to build the African Socialist International. I traveled to Northern Ireland at that time under heavy occupation by the British colonizers, and won support from the Irish Republican Socialist Party for the reparations demand for African people. And in fact, we did jointly a press conference that they called in Belfast, uniting with the demand by African people for reparations. So this is work that we have been doing for a very long time. It is not a matter of trending. It is a work that we're doing because we understand the fact is that the African Revolution is one revolution. It is a revolution that has made around the world from different fronts around the world. And also it was something that we did because we have come to understand through consistent study and struggle in the process of winning our liberation, as I mentioned earlier, that the whole liberation struggle of our people has run into its limitation. There is not going to be, as much as we may desire, as much as bad things happen to African people in the United States, there is not going to be a U.S. African revolution. There is not going to be a successful Haitian revolution. The first magnificent revolution of African people subsequent to being brought into colonial slavery, of course, happened there in Haiti. And it challenged the entire world economy at the time because it was based on slavery. It was a remarkable historical event that all Africans everywhere should note. But the fact of the matter is that Haiti was isolated. The Africans in Haiti was isolated. And this is despite all the things that were done by revolutionary forces in Haiti. There's so much to learn from that. And part of what we have to learn from that Haitian revolution is that you cannot compromise with colonialism. And that, of course, is something that Jean-Jacques Dessalines came to understand even after Toussaint Louverture, who was recognized as this iconic figure, and obviously and justly for his military acumen. but he did not understand that you cannot compromise with colonialism. It was Dessalines who understood this and had determined that and pushed forth the slogan, cut off their heads and burn their houses. This was something that demands our understanding even today about how we have to make this revolution. It has to be complete, it has to be thorough, and that there is no way we can compromise with colonialism. The truth is, Mafrika, when we talk about making Belgium pay reparations, and the reparations demand altogether is a criticism of colonialism. To demand reparations is a criticism of colonialism. And this is something that you must understand. We must understand, Africans, because otherwise we get trapped into this demand that somehow the colonizer treats us better. How can you demand reparations if the only problem is that you just didn't get paid enough during the time of your enslavement, during the time of colonial captivity, direct colonial captivity? The fact is that that the reparations demand is a criticism of colonialism and this nonsense that they've pushed us into of demanding some kind of resolution that would integrate the interests of the colonized with that of the colonizer is a dead-end street, and that we have to fight against that. And part of what the African People's Socialist Party has come to understand is that while many people who call themselves leftists and some call themselves Marxists have been able to recognize that there are various modes of production, and they have defined them for Europe, and most Marxists assume this as a general reality. These modes of production being slavery, that is slavery in the generic sense, not what was done to African people, which is colonial slavery. They talked about it being subsequent to that mode of production that has its own set of characteristics, its own definition, was born a feudal mode of production, again with its own characteristics and what have you. And then from feudalism, then they talk about the arrival of capitalism, except they can't go straight from feudalism to capitalism. And Karl Marx himself defined the way to get out of this obvious problem, conundrum that they were faced with in terms of trying to explain the emergence of capitalism. And the way they explained that, according to Marx, was that there was a primitive accumulation of capital. There was a starting accumulation of capital that didn't come as a consequence of capitalist production, but was a starting point. And this, what he referred to, again, as primitive accumulation. And what we refer to it as colonialism. And what he talked about was turning Africa into a warren for the commercial hunting of black skins. This is a part of the primitive accumulation. He talked about the war that that England made with China to force China to become engaged in the drug trade and drugs themselves, to trade drugs, teeth for drugs. This is that they call the Opium War. This is a part of the entire process that he characterized as primitive accumulation, and that we know to be colonialism. It was the theft of this land that is called the United States of America. It is the colonization of the indigenous population here. It is the assault on the territory now known as New Zealand, and then Canada, and then Australia, and various other places around the world where we see wars being waged against the people, even as we have this discussion, because this is the origin, this is the starting point. In fact, Karl Marx talked about this thing that he called primitive accumulation having the same, being equal in political economy to original sin in theology. This is the starting point, colonialism, and everything that defines Europe and European thought and its influence around the world stems from colonialism, which is the material act, the thought patterns, and how Europe has come to understand and explain the world. not just to themselves, but because they have the power, the colonial power, explain it to the world. And most of the definitions that we work with today have their origin in this emergence of colonial capitalism, because Karl Marx was right when he talked about how there is this superstructure, the ideas, the ideology, culture, and other things that stem from how a society gets its living, how it acquires its existence. And how it acquires its existence, it gets its living, has been since the movement from feudalism in Europe to capitalism. And this movement from feudalism in Europe, what dragged Europe out of the Stone Ages, what dragged Europe out of the Dark Ages, if you will, was this movement of Europe to engage in the capture of African bodies, African people, and the lands and resources from other peoples around the world. This is what changed Europe, changed what we now know as Europe. Was no Europe before then. This is something that must be understood, because the Marxists cannot tell you this. And this is not some anti-Marxist rant. What I'm trying to say is that we are African internationalists, and that we have the ability to understand the world, to be able to investigate and make analysis of the world. And we can use tools like historical materialism as a means of doing that. And if we do that, and if we investigate the history in terms of the rise of capitalism, we see the fundamental role played, first of all, by Africa and African people, and then related to that, the role played by all of the other people who have been colonized around the world. This is the foundation that the superiority of white people rests upon. This is something that we must understand. So when you hear something about trade, when you hear something about civilization, when you hear most of the questions that the judicial and otherwise that define reality today, most of it and almost all of it has its origin in colonialism. This is the superstructure. This is the set of ideas that came from slavery, came from colonial slavery of African people and then of other peoples around the world. So when we talk today, this is not just a traditional, typical kind of discussion. Another instance of simply information gathering. We are speaking as a revolutionary political party, and we understand that Africa and African people must be free. And this is a struggle that we have been involved in now for 50 years from the African People's Socialist Party to make this struggle. And we've been talking about reparations for for as long as we've been in existence as a fundamental criticism against the social system itself. And we've been talking about colonialism for more than 50 years, the fight against colonialism being the critical struggle that we have to be involved in, and we cannot allow anybody else to take us away from that. And so somebody who says that they're communists or they're socialists or something to that effect, so are we. But we understand that that cannot come into existence without first the destruction of colonialism, because colonialism is the foundation upon which the whole capitalist system rests. It is colonial capitalism that we are talking about, and that there is not going to be any socialism, if that's what you're talking about, you're for, without first getting rid of colonialism. The struggle against colonialism and capitalism is the beginning of the struggle against a struggle for socialism, as that's what you're really for. Because capitalism and socialism cannot occupy the same political space, cannot occupy the same social space. And this is what we mean when we look at modes of production from primitive communism to what they call slavery, to feudalism, and then to capitalism. The fact is that for each of these modes of production to come into existence, the one that preceded it, the one that it was coming from, had to be destroyed. And that's what we say, that if you're really talking about getting rid of colonialism, getting rid of capitalism, then you've got to say the foundation of that is a struggle against colonialism. When you look and hear these discussions that are happening all around the world today, again, they are informed by the colonial relationship that Europe, white people, white power have had with Africa and the rest of us, even the discussion around ecology. And there are things happening, obviously, with the weather that's extraordinary, that haven't seen before. You know, like glaciers are melting in various places. The oceans are rising up. Extraordinary heat waves and hurricanes and other things like that. They're occurring as a consequence of the assault on the environment. And the assault on the environment, something we understand differently from how the colonizers, whether they're nice colonizers or unnice colonizers, whether they call themselves environmentalists, socialists, or what have you, what we understand that they have not been able to understand is that the environmental question has its origin in the attack on Africa and other peoples around the world. Comrade Luwezi talked about the thousands of elephants that were killed for the Belgians to be able to get ivory to make piano keys and cue balls, pool balls, and things like this. The assault on the environment, where you turn whole patches of territory and land into place for simply the development of rubber trees, plantations, to do all these kinds of things that help to challenge the ecology as it would have existed without that kind of intervention. And I have read someplace, I think that half of the people who were Africans who were captured and sold into colonial slavery around the world came from this area that we now know as Congo. And so this is what we are talking about. We're not talking about something that is particular and peculiar to Belgium. And yes, the Belgian government and the Belgian population, and this is true of all colonizer populations, generally speaking, have been corrupted by the resources that they don't have to pay for. Comrade Luwezi was talking about how the Belgium had not to make any kind of investment to get the rubber and to get all the other kinds of resources, ivory, that was coming from Congo. But not only did Belgium, in terms of the corporations or in terms of the government, not have to make any investment, the Belgian people didn't have to make any investment either. It didn't come from their tax monies. It didn't come from anything. So here you have, all over Europe, all over the white world, all these people who are receiving all these resources coming in, filling up the refrigerators that's been developed through the resources stolen from us, filling them up. And it's gluttonous. They didn't have to grow it. They didn't have to make it happen. And so they have all these resources and it turns a whole white population of the world into gluttons, living off other people's resources, living off not having to make any kind of investment at all in taking them. And so this is what we're looking at in terms of how not only the political and economic configuration of the world, but even how the ideological trends in the world, the ideological, the superstructure that we are penetrating with this discussion, how it all comes into being and how it unites the European colonial population and corrupts the European population, separating them from other human beings so that they get everything they need, their resources, they feed their children as a consequence of what they take from Africa, what they take from the oppressed and colonized peoples of the world. This is the reality that we're confronted with. So colonialism has no morality. And somebody says that, well, Belgium hasn't apologized. We're talking about returning the main remains of Lumumba, and they're talking about the remains being a tooth and perhaps a finger, 2 teeth and a finger. I've seen different reports on that, but apologize. Colonialism has no soul. It has no conscience. It is colonial capitalism is motivated only by profit, by taking resources, stealing land and human beings. It cares nothing about human beings, which is one of the reasons they could kill somebody like Lumumba in such a grotesque and horrible way, which is why you have not just the United States who are trying to kill Lumumba, whom they've codenamed Barracuda, but you have Belgium, you have France, you have the British. All of them are working to kill Lumumba. And of course, you have the neo-colonial puppets who exist inside of Congo, trapped in some instances simply by the ideological assumptions that come along with colonialism, that it is a permanent fixture in our lives, and what we have to do is just find a way to live with it, to accommodate it, and sometimes trapped by economic our interests, because the colonizer in every instance will create a certain sector of the colonial population that they will connect with the political economy of colonialism, colonial capitalism, so that they themselves will have a stake in the continuing existence of the colonial capitalist system, and will work against the interests of African people as well. So this is part of what it is that we are dealing with and up against. So we are revolutionaries. And when we talk about reparations, and when we started this demand to make this effort to make reparations a household word, that took me throughout Europe, and that took me throughout the United States, and that created tribunals over and over in different places around the United States for more than 11 or 12 years, it was something that was informed by the need to make this revolution, that African people have to become free, that we have to be a self-defining, self-determining people, that we have to refuse to live at the whims of any other social force. We have to have come to a determination that nobody ever, no other power, no other force in the world will ever live at the expense of Africa and African people again. That's something that we assume responsibility for, not in some kind of abstract way. We assume responsibility for that by coming into the African People's Socialist Party, because the fact is that Africans around the world live under the worst kind of oppression. Whether it is what we've discussed about Belgium, and everybody can hold up the horrors of what has happened to Belgium, what has happened to Congolese Africans in Congo from Belgium. But look at Haiti. Look at where 300,000 people were dead in an earthquake that came there, and with the infrastructure having been destroyed by the colonizers who put us there in the first place under colonial domination. Look at what's happening in the United States that holds itself up as this great, wonderful, freedom-loving and freedom-projecting entity in the world. And Africans you see being killed on a regular basis in the United States by domestic colonial military forces called police. Regularly happens. And the land itself that we are talking about is the land of the indigenous population, against whom near genocide was created. And you have these settlers. You have European settlers, just like the Belgians were settlers in Congo before the revolution, just like the French were settlers in Algeria before the revolution, just like the British are settlers today, along with others in what they call South Africa. You have a situation in the United States of settlers. White settlers. This is a part of the colonial project that brought all these resources that developed capitalism as the economy that it is. You must understand this, because only you can destroy it, and you cannot be dragged around believing that there is some other alternative to victory other than what we do ourselves as Africans and as revolutionaries. So this is why we say the African People's Socialist Party. If you recognize that we are oppressed, then you recognize there is an oppressor, because people don't oppress themselves. And if we recognize that we are oppressed, and if we recognize that we're talking about a whole social system that has come about as our existence, then we see the significance of the African Revolution in terms of the whole transformation of the entire world, the global economy. And if we recognize that we have to do this, we recognize also that the colonizer is not going to peacefully and simply turn it over to us, that it's going to be a part of this ongoing process of struggle, revolutionary struggle that will take our freedom and take our resources back for us as African people, along with in unity with the other people who are colonized around the world who are making this struggle. So I think it's important for us to understand this. So the African People's Socialist Party, we built the African National Reparations Organization in 1982. We have been pushing the reparations demand for the longest period of time, and we pushed the reparations demand as a function of the revolution. And when we first started talking about revolution, about reparations, it was really important for us to win all of the Africans, regardless of whatever class position they located, to the position of reparations, because reparations is a criticism of colonialism, no matter whatever reason that some sellout or some opportunist would jump onto the demand. Reparations is a criticism of colonialism. And we recognize that at this point in time in our history, where the African Revolution had been crushed globally, and African people have been taught contempt for ourselves, have been pushed to a situation where we were forced, because our leaders are being assassinated, our organizations being destroyed, to accept responsibility for our conditions, and to actually see Europe and Europeans and the colonizers as benefactors who are actually providing some things for us. And the colonizers would occasionally, and a lot of times, complain that somehow they were just getting tired. They were being exhausted about having to give welfare to African people globally. But when you talk about reparations, and you can win this among African people, what happens in the brains of African people? You change their consciousness, and you help the masses to understand that it is not we African people anywhere who owe reparations or anything to Europe or to white power or to colonialism. It is they who owe reparations to us. It is they who they've lived off the welfare of Black people, of African people globally. And you can see that. You see the emergence of Belgium as a state coming about as a consequence of this. And this is true all over Europe. And this is true all over what we now call the United States. These are entities that came into existence through colonialism. And if nothing else, it should show you that colonialism is the critical factor in the whole social system, and Africa and Africans are the critical force in the struggle against colonialism. That's why they can talk about just Congo alone, the trillions of dollars in minerals and wealth that's under the earth in Congo. But if you take all of Africa, you're looking at a similar kind of situation in terms of the tremendous amount of resources there. And we have to take them. So we push the reparations demand. And we wanted everybody to jump on, and everybody has jumped on it. And some of them have been opportunists, and some of them have done it talking about they trying to reform capitalism. And somehow we get an apology from Belgium, we get an apology from the U.S., and some pittance that they would call reparations is all over. But for us, revolutionaries, for us who come into the African People's Socialist Party, for us who are members of the African Socialist International, yes, we want everybody to jump on the reparations demand. That's because the nation, the whole African nation, has to push that demand, and it pushes that demand. It pushes the colonizers on the defensive, and it opens the door. It opens the door for actual revolutionary activity, revolutionary organization. The African People's Socialist Party around the globe, it opens the door. It allows us to take this demand for reparations to its revolutionary conclusion. It helps us to explain the demand for reparations as a function of the revolution. It is not some assumption that somehow you can get some money, you can get something, a new school, or you can get some infrastructure development by Europe to be able for us to be able to function within the same system. We are determined to destroy this system. This system must be destroyed. We have to overturn the whole colonial capitalist system. And that's our responsibility as the African People's Socialist Party, as the African Socialist International. Ultimately, it's our responsibility as Africans, not only to ourselves, it's our responsibility to the world. The fact is, the African Revolution being fought on so many different continents. The U.S. is the U.S. front of the African Revolution. In the Caribbean, it's the Caribbean front of the African Revolution. There's a European section of the African Revolution. There's a Ghana and so-called South African section of the African Revolution. The fact is that we are in Australia and various other places, one revolutionary struggle, one revolutionary movement that we're involved in. And this is something that makes possible for the first time in human history, the evolvement, the development, the revolutionary trajectory, if you will, that can create a socialist world economy. as opposed to the capitalist world economy, the colonial capitalist world economy that dominates the world. We're talking about an anti-colonial socialist economy that can come about spearheaded by Africa and African people globally. That's our responsibility. That's why we're here right now. That's why we call on you to join with us to be a part of this organized process. Because revolution is a process. It's not an event. And so anybody who thinks that simply demonstrating against the Belgian or pushing down a statue of Leopold is going to suffice, you're wrong. We're going to have to go beyond that. And yes, you should fight for reparations in Belgium. Fight for reparations in Belgium. Fight for it in France. Fight for it everywhere we are located in the world for a number of reasons. One is because we have to negate the economy of the colonial capitalist system. We do a lot of work like that within the African Socialist International. We have to negate the economy of the colonial capitalist system. That means that Africans have to push ourselves back into history, assume responsibility for creating life and recreating life ourselves through our own productive process, through taking our resources and our energy back from the colonizer. So that's something that's absolutely necessary for us to do. That's one of the tasks that we have. But another thing that we have to do is to say that Africa shouldn't have to play catch up. The fact is that there's this notion that somehow after many years, maybe the Africa can catch up, etc. No. Africa has been producing for Europe. Africa has been producing for the world economy. Africa has been producing for America now for up to 600 years. Africa doesn't have to catch up. What we do wherever we are located as African people is to fight for Africa, to take the resources of Africa back for Africa, which means that not only are we fighting in Belgium to talk about some improvement, perhaps for the life of an African who lives in Belgium. That's something that you can debate among yourselves. But the reality is that those resources came from Africa. And we have to be fighting in Belgium for Africa. And we have to be fighting in Germany for Africa. And we have to be fighting everywhere we are located for Africa and the ability to make this revolution, to take these reparations so that they can go back to Africa and contribute to Africa's development and the development of the African nation. So that's part of what it is that we understand about this question. It's a revolutionary question. And
Uhuru, 10 minutes.
And we are not going to be able to coexist with colonialism. We're going to have to take our freedom, and we're going to have the organization to do that. And we're going to have to fight this revolutionary struggle every place in the world. And to do this takes a certain kind of organization. You can't do this with just any kind of organization. It takes a revolutionary organization. In fact, part of what we've learned over the last 50 years or so or more is that the revolutionary formation or the formations that we had in the past, they didn't serve the purpose of making revolution. I mean, you look at a formation that was led by Comrade Patrice Lumumba, who had a creature in it like Mobutu. You look at what the Comrade, the Convention People's Party, that was organized by Nkrumah in Ghana. When Nkrumah was overthrown by the U.S. government, the whole delegation that was traveling with him at the time went back to Ghana to participate in that neo-colonial government that came there. So it's something about the kind of organization you need, the kind of cadre that you need to make this revolution. You can't do it with just any kind of organization, and you can't do it with just any kind of membership. And that's the ongoing struggle that we're involved in, and something that somehow turns some people off revolution because they can't tolerate the kind of discipline that's necessary to make the revolution. And that this, we talking about an organization of professional revolutionaries, where the responsibility, the thing that we live and fight for is the revolution. And it's infused in our families and every place we go and all the work we do, revolution. The strategic aims of the revolution, we don't simply get involved in actions, we get involved with actions recognizing that there must be a to what end, and to what end must be the total liberation and unification of Africa and African people around the world. That's what we have to fight for in Chicago, U.S. That's what we have to fight for in Congo and any other places that we are located in the world. So this is what the African Socialist International is. It is an organization of revolutionaries. It is an organization of people who are constantly tested, where there is, as a matter of principle, criticism and self-criticism of our behavior, of our actions, to make sure that we are living up to the tenets of the revolution, to help us to, continuously be reminded that we're not doing this for ourselves. We're doing this for the liberation of our people. Africans suffer physical, mental, social brutality, and humiliation on a regular basis as a nation. This must be intolerable. You must find this intolerable. And you must find it necessary to join the revolutionary organization that has been designed and has been fighting this for 50 years consistently. So they killed Lumumba. And Belgium did it with the U.S. and with the French and with the British, all collaborated in doing that. And now Belgium is sorry for what happened, kind of, sort of, but it doesn't even today take responsibility for it. And I don't care if Belgium takes responsibility, because at the end of the day, we're going to hold trials all over the world. And the colonizers will be put on trial because we will have a different kind of court system, a different legal process that's based on revolution and not colonial capitalism. So, I mean, that's part of what it is, you know, how we understand the world and what it is that we are looking at. So, comrades, brothers and sisters, we have to assume the responsibility of winning our freedom ourselves. And we have to know that this freedom is something that we have to fight for around the world. There's only one organization that has ever done what it is that we are doing, and it left a magnificent blueprint of sorts for us. And I want people here to be cognizant of it. And this was the organization led by Marcus Garvey, called the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League. Now, Garvey was an African fundamentalist, and the Universal Negro Improvement Association, UNIA, was an African fundamentalist organization. And that's really important to say, because we are saying that any organization, any movement has to have a philosophical foundation. It has to have to what end? It has to make a prediction of victory in future that we can see as we engage and struggle where we are in relationship to that victory. If you don't have a philosophy, then it's nothing. And Garvey, again, was an African fundamentalist. And he was not a Pan-Africanist, though the Pan-Africanists have subsequently attempted to capture Garvey and make him one of a number of people who they characterize as Pan-Africanists. In fact, Garvey was clear on that. He said he wasn't a Pan-Africanist. He said that because the Pan-Africanist political movement of Pan-Africanism, which grew out of 1919, a meeting that happened in France, that was permitted by the French, depending on the willingness of the participants to not criticize French colonialism. This movement was begun as an attack on the Marcus Garvey movement that was rooted among African working people globally, that had a massive following of up to 11 million African people, that in 1920 had a conference, a convention in New York at Madison Square Garden with 25 to 50,000 people, Africans, in attendance. And the reason that we say 25 to 50,000 people, because all the people could not fit in Madison Square Garden. So they had loudspeakers set up outside where thousands of people were listening to the proceedings that happened in this Negro convention, as it was characterized. This is where the first time in history, Africans as a collective came together and said that we have a president, and this provisional president of Africa, Africans elected Marcus Garvey and the Universal Negro Improvement Association head. It was Africans who ourselves, because Garvey recognized that one of the biggest signatures of nationality was a flag, and we had no flag. And so Garvey and that convention of 25,000 to 50,000 African people voted that the flag would be red, black, and green. These are the national colors of Africa and African people. Garvey did that. And so today, we 21st century Garveyites, we are African internationalists. We are not Pan-Africanists. We are revolutionaries. And our objective is the total liberation of all of Africa, every square inch of Africa, and the unification of Africa and African people globally. We recognize that this is something that has to happen under the leadership of the African working class, and that the African working class has an instrument to do this for the first time. And that instrument is a revolutionary political party, the advanced attachment of the African working class and the African nation, the vanguard, if you will. And that's the African Socialist International. We are African internationalists. We again, 21st century Garveyites, and our objective is to win this revolution. I want to say this finally. Again, the African working class must lead this struggle. 2, I think that you will come to the African Socialist International, and you will see how one of the things that we've done is to demystify white people. And because white people have become mystified because of their brutality, because of their prevalence everywhere, the domination everywhere. And so we've come up to all kinds of conclusions about white people. In some instances, we've declared that white people are devils, or white people are mutations and not part of the human family. We've come up to all kinds of things, but African internationalism teaches us that there's nothing mysterious about white people, that white people are indeed people, and they can be understood and treated like people. There's nothing superhuman about them, nothing super smart about them, nothing super anything about them, except they have been oppressors. And the thing that has shaped the consciousness and attitude of white people everywhere is the fact that they are a population that live off colonial domination of everybody else. And that this is the thing that has given them a stake in the oppression and exploitation of everybody else. This is what has shaped their opinions, their attitudes. This is what has shaped their appetites and the whole of it. This colonial capitalist relationship they have with us and the rest of the peoples of the world. We have created an African Socialist and African People Solidarity Committee. This is a solidarity front of the African People's Socialist Party, the African Socialist International. And it has the responsibility to take the anti-colonial African revolution into the homes and the communities of the colonizers. This is the first time in history that this has been done. And they fight for reparations and for everything that's called on by the African Revolution. And they fight under the absolute and total leadership of a revolutionary party of the African working class. So I want to thank everybody for being here, because we do have to make this revolution. We do have to win this freedom for ourselves. And in so doing, we will win freedom for all of the peoples of the world, all of the toiling masses of the world. We do believe that from the United States to Congo, to Haiti, to all areas of the Caribbean, through Europe, we are talking about one revolution. And the African Revolution can be fought wherever you are located. You don't have to fight for some kind of German revolution in Germany to make the Germans love you. You don't have to fight for some kind of Black Brit fight in England to somehow find a space and get accepted by the British. You can fight for Africa no matter where it is that you're located, if you're part of the African Socialist International and if you're an African Socialist International. So yes, let's make Belgium pay reparations. And of course, as we understand that everything that Belgium has is something that it has taken from Africa, and the real reparations will come as a consequence of our making this revolution that will dethrone Belgium and all of the colonizers in Europe and around the world. Uhuru, thank you so much, Africa.
Uhuru,
Uhuru.
Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Thank you, comrade. Thank you very much for that presentation. We learned a lot and we are much more encouraged, especially as members of the African Socialist Party, to fight on and continue building this revolutionary project to its final conclusion. So I saw that there are a lot of people, comments and questions, and we'll get to that. All the questions that have been asked, we'll do our best for them to get to be answered. So I just want to be able to go ahead and move the program and go to the next item. And I know this is going to be made by Comrade Tonderai. This is the appeal for funds. Comrade Tonderai Mo Africa, Uhuru.
Can you hear me?
Yes, comrade.
Uhuru, Comrade Tafari. I just wanted to say greetings and salutation. These are wonderful presentations from the leadership of our party, with keynote presentations from the founder of the African People's Socialist Party and leader of the African Socialist International, Omali Yeshitela, Secretary General of the African Socialist International, Luwezi Kinshasa, Penny Hess, Chairwoman of the Solidarity Committee, and Comrade Tafari, representing Occupied Azania Front. Salutes to all the attendees in the chats and in the comments. We are very encouraged to see everyone's participation and comments. Please keep them coming. We acknowledge and thank you all for your participation. I myself, my name is Twanderai. I'm part of the African Socialist International, representing the UK front. So the theme for tonight was Make Belgium Pay, and is part of our reparations campaign and awareness to build up capacity for the party. And our ultimate goal, as reiterated by the chairman, of crushing the parasitic relationship of life and resources between the oppressed continent of Africa and her peoples versus the oppression nations and the relationship that we have, so that Africa and its people can be free and self-determining under and united under the African workers' state. Tonight, we are raising awareness throughout the world, wherever Africans are located, through street activism on the ground. We have forces on the ground via social media, such as these platforms, WhatsApp, Facebook, YouTube, through the Burning Spear, which is the oldest African revolutionary newspaper in print. And it continues to expand, and we're expanding into multilingual distribution. Tonight, we are asking to raise, we are calling for resources to raise funds to help capacitate the activities of the party, the institutions that we want to set up that will help us carry out our mandate to bring about revolutionary change to all the Africans. So just to begin with the fundraising appeal, we're asking for all our viewers, if we can all look into our pockets, dig deep, and help us meet our target tonight, which is to raise £500. So I just appeal to all our attendees, anybody on Zoom, on Facebook, and on YouTube. If you can, if there's anyone who can donate €500, would be much appreciated. Hopefully you should be able to see information popping up on your screen. So you can make a one-time donation today, or you can make regular donations by leaving your details, which should be appearing on your screen. So for pledges, you can email us at uhuru@gmail.com, or you can send payments via PayPal to paypal.me/Uhuru ASI. You can also send directly to the Bank of HSBC. Account number should be appearing on your screens. If not, should be appearing shortly. And the account number is 514-38743, sort code 400525. If you're located in France or anywhere outside UK International, our UK International bank account number is GB278HB UK40052551438-743. So just opening up the chats and the comments, if we have any people willing to pledge and help us kickstart this donation appeal. Hopefully this information should be appearing on your screen. So we continue to carry out the work of Garvey, as reiterated by the chairman, Nkrumah, Lumumba, working to unite the African world under the workers' state. If there are any two people who are able to donate £250 towards this campaign, be very much appreciated, very much welcome. And yeah, just help us to realize these projects and objectives for the party. Yeah, just monitoring activities in the chats there. So just to reassure everyone else, we understand that not everybody will be in a position to make pledges or donations immediately today at this point in time. So not to worry, we also continue to encourage everyone, even if you do not have the money today, you can still go ahead and make a pledge. And give your donations on a day that's convenient for you. So just to reiterate again, those contact details are available for you. Feel free to email us, contact us via the chats, and just inform us what would be more suitable for you in terms of bringing forward those donations and pledges. So feel free to contact us and let us know what your personal situation is, and we'd still very much welcome all your donations. Yeah, I see some activities in the chats there. All right. So while everybody is digging deep into your pockets, just to raise awareness and inform everyone that you can take part in our presentations. We hold weekly presentations and meetings. So every week you can tune into the War of Ideas. This is held on Fridays at 20:30 CET, which is French time, and on Facebook as part of our political education sessions. These sessions are held in French. So if there are any attendees or members who are multilingual or prefer to converse in French or have a good command of the French language, and you are readily accessible and prefer to have communications in French, this would be a good opportunity for you to get involved in the activities of the movement. Get yourself well versed and familiar with objectives, our aims, and the political discussions and political education that goes on. For English speakers, you can also get involved. We regularly host Africa Must Unite. This is done on Saturdays, 12 noon, London time. As well, this takes part on the Facebook, on our Facebook page. We also provide political education sessions, and these sessions are led by Luwezi Kinshasa, who is the Secretary General of the African Socialist International. You would have seen his earlier presentation. So all our sessions are delivered using the theory and practice of African Socialist Internationalism, and this is towards building the African worker state. So just to reiterate that, everyone's participation is very much appreciated, very much welcome. And no one is too big or too small. No donation is too small or too large. We all combine together and unite towards the ideal of realizing this revolutionary struggle. So greetings and salutations, and Uhuru to all. Thank you. Okay.
Uhuru. Uhuru. So Uhuru, let me see. I know right now I cannot turn on my video. Uhuru, Comrade Tonderai. Thank you. I know we'll be able to just to announce that how much to raise in terms of pledges and actual donations that have came through so far. So
okay, we've got a comment I see asking how can I donate from Spain. Hopefully you should be able to see the contact details appearing on screen. Okay, we've got pledges coming in. Comrade Tafari, am I okay to cross over to you?
Oh, yes, comrade. I know we'll be able to get a chance. I was hoping that right now I'm trying to go to the just to see how much we've been able to raise. Maybe you can get to look at that, and then we'll be able to announce it. Yeah, we'll
Okay.
get that announced. Uhuru. Yes, Uhuru. Can I please have my my video on? All right, Uhuru, comrades. So let's keep them coming, comrades, because we are like this. We say African internationalism is a theory of practice. Actually, the party has built a lot of institutions through revolutionary efforts, collectivizing, our efforts as African people and other people that unite with the struggle for African people for self-determination. So just keep them coming, and I just want to salute you, comrade Tonderai, and I want to move the process forward. But then, if we are able to get like the total of what has been raised in terms of donations and pledges right now from you, comrade Tonderai, you can go ahead and announce that before we move to the next segment of this program. And then if not, maybe we can get to it. And then while we're busy with the discussion, which is our next item, then maybe we can interject and be able just to announce quickly how much has been collected so far. Uhuru, comrades, you've had the discussions, SG Luwezi Kinshasa and Chairwoman Penny Hess, as well as our Chairman Omali Yeshitela. They gave some great presentations, and we can see that the question of Congo is quite critical. And I think it was Frantz Fanon who said that Africa has the shape of a gun and Congo is the trigger. So if we pull that trigger, there will be a great explosion actually that will affect the entire world. Actually, the liberation of Africa is key. That's what African internationalism says. It's key to the overturning of the whole entire social system. And I just want to, for me personally, really right now, as Luwezi, I would really like to hear more about, these this proxy neocolonialism, because I've never heard of that term being used before. But I know that here we do have some questions. I'd like for us to entertain some of those questions. And the first one are directed to S. Luwezi from Zinga Asata. It says the French continue to make Haiti pay reparations for freeing themselves, which is us as African people over there, from enslavement to this day, with support from the United Snakes of America. So that was the first comment directed to you, S. Luwezi. Another one to S. Luwezi. Maybe if you can, I can just read all of them. What can you tell us about the role of Leon Rome? He seems similar to Lugard, Leon Rome. And then the other one directed to S. Luwezi again is, will you be attending the reparations rebellion and march from Windrush Square in London on the 1st of August this year? We have to start pulling together to achieve success. I replied yes in the chat. Uhuru S. Luwezi, are you able to respond to this?
Yes, well, thank you for those questions. To begin with the demonstration for reparation on the 1st of August, yes, we were going to be there. We want to move forward this work around the reparation demand. And this is basically, it's a yes, we're going to be there. And we're going to make a contribution to make that a success. What was Leon Rome? Leon was a parasite, was a colonizer. He was somebody who lived in Belgium and at the age of maybe 18, but as a youngster, uh, he joined basically Leopold II call to come to Congo, and they came to Congo, and he was in the army, in the colonial army, and he was one of those white colonizers who collected hands, the hands that were cut off from Africans. For every bullets, the soldiers have to justify the use of that bullets, so they will cut the hands of Africans or the ears, of Africans. So he was one of those collectors, hand collectors. So he's a nasty person. He's a colonizer, basically, parasite, a murderer, and he lived, parasitic life, just like all colonizers experienced. He was promoted a captain in the colonial army in the Congo, and his salary was 50% more than what he would have received if he lived in Belgium. So he was basically a happy colonizer. And it's appreciate that this question was asked, because we want to bring all these names out, not just Leopold, but the whole system, those who made it work. So Leon Rob is one name. Stanley is another name. There are many names. Leon Fievers. You have Matthew Pelzer. You have, of course, the King Bodo, Patrice Lumumba. There are many, many names of Belgian colonizers who played a very, very terroristic role. I mean, who just killed Africans at will, oppress us in a most horrific way. And I would like those names to be out there so that it can also help the Africans to identify the actors of colonialism, so the struggle can be developed everywhere. There might be the name of the street, they could be everywhere. So all this will help us basically to galvanize people around the work of reparations, as we collect evidence. And these names, like Leon Rome is one of the evidence, when we build our own tribunal, we will use. The other question was, I forgot the other question. What was it around?
On Haiti, the
Haiti,
French
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. That's a very important question. We know Haiti was the first workers' revolution because to be colonized, it means you have to be a worker, particularly basically that's the first slave revolution, successful slave revolution. White people like to talk about commune in France, that was the revolution of colonizers, because the white workers are part of the colonizers' society. So the revolution of French people, the first one, the bourgeois revolution, that put the bourgeoisie in power, and the second one that didn't succeed, that put was made by the French workers, didn't succeed. The Marxists like to talk about it. You will like to know that those French workers of the commune ended up in what they call New Caledonia today as colonizers, and they are one of the most terroristic colonizers against the African people in New Caledonia. So the French, after we defeated them in Haiti, they told the leadership of African Revolution in Haiti, Jean-Jacques Dessalines and others, if you want to trade, if you want to have a relationship, if you want to participate in the world economy, you have to always remember that the world economy is one of the preconditions for the existence of capitalism and on the foundation of colonialism. So if you want to participate in this world economy, you must compensate the French bourgeoisie for the loss of their property, basically us, in Haiti. And in today's money, that was like 2015, they said it was something like $22 billion. That's a lot of money. And the Africans Haiti have been paying that every year since until I think 2015 or 2019. But that's a lot of money. And that's why the president of Haiti at one time, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, demanded France to pay what they call restitution. This is not reparation. This is restitution. Just return our money. Of course, on top of that, our demand for reparation is valid. So that's, I'm calling all Africans to unite with that demand of restitution. That France must return the 22 billion pound with interest stolen from our people in Haiti. We should organize everywhere we can in Africa, in Europe, throughout the world to demand French return this money. And I appreciate really the question. We really need to galvanize this struggle around reparation and restitutions because we should not just wait for Africans in Haiti to make this demand. All of us, we owe it that to Haiti because the Africans in Haiti, as I said in the beginning, they are the one who showed the way. They are the one who made this successful revolution that brought a major crisis to the existence of parasitic capitalism. And that crisis was so profound that it led to the Bolivarian Revolution, any other revolution that emerged in Americas at the time. It was inspired by the Haitian Revolution. And what we're going to do now with African Socialist International and complete the Haitian Revolution by doing it all of us in one organization at the same times and destroying the pedestal upon which the entire edifice sits on. So it's really the contribution that makes it really profound. So we need to complete it now. Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you, Luwezi. And I just want to mention that the question on Lyon, Rome, I don't know if I mentioned this, but it's from Comrade Matsamela. And the one on the march happening on the 1st of August, that's from Zinga Asata. And then I want to move to the next one, which is directed to Chairwoman Penny Hess from Muhad, and it's the African diaspora organizations fighting for justice and reparations in Belgium. I think that was just a statement. And then it says, the next one is from Zinga Asanta. It says, Chairwoman Penny, the Belgians can deny their crimes, but history is already showing them to be the psychopath they are. So, and then those were just two comments that were made during your presentation, Comrade Penny. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Uhuru. Well, I would just say that the Belgians are colonizers, as white people are everywhere. And all white people have been part of this kind of unending violence towards African people throughout the history of colonization. And there can be the ability under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party for white people, like the chairman said, to find our true interests, which is in a world without the oppressed and the oppressors, and that can only be led by the African Revolution and the African working class, and that our job is to return the stolen resources. So the chairman was saying that it is not going to wait. The African Revolution, once it's African people are owed their reparations, all of their stolen resources now. And that there is the ability for white people to take a stand, to find our humanity, to take responsibility for our past under the leadership of the African Revolution. We can't do it any other way. We have to become African internationalists. We have to adopt and embrace the worldview as seen through, as the chairman calls it, what have been forced to be the objects of history that are now the subjects of history, forced, the point of view of the oppressed and colonized African working class. We have to adopt that as our own, and we have the ability to do that. And again, as the chairman said, that African internationalism is a political theory of practice. So we can't, this isn't something just to sit around in a cafe and talk about. This is something that if we begin to understand this, we must take action under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party by joining the Uhuru Solidarity Movement or by joining the African People's Solidarity Committee, both directly under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, Uhuru.
Uhuru, Comrade Director Tafari. I just wanted to speak briefly to the issue that one comrade raised about France being able to extort reparations resources from Haiti up until just recently. The fact is that the United States Marines also invaded Haiti in 1915 and stayed there till 1934. They invaded Haiti. The Africans in Haiti had a constitutional prohibition against white people owning land in Haiti. That only Black people could own land in Haiti, according to the Constitution. And the Marines forced the parliament at gunpoint to change that law so that white people could own land by law. It says it's really telling that they would use guns, they would use a military force to force somebody to write something, and that would give it legality as far as they're concerned. The question of its legitimacy is another story. But I also want to say that when the U.S. Marines left Haiti, they took all of the gold out of the Haitian treasury, every bit of it, everything they had, and brought it to the United States. And so you talk about how we respond to reparations, how we respond to what France has done. One of the responsibilities is to attack the United States for all that loot. And that's simply touching, barely the surface of the amount of resources that's stolen from Haiti, and stolen labor. The fact that Africans in Haiti had to sell blood to major corporations in the United States, that we made baseballs for them. We did all kinds of vicious kind of labor, and all kinds of resources went to the United States because of the assault that the United States made after France, and that maintained the colonial domination of African people there. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you very much for that. And I know we do have one or two more questions and comments here, but I do want to allow Comrade Tonderai just to make that announcement in terms of update of how much we've raised so far, so that maybe we can continue to encourage more people to donate. Comrade Tonderai, can you just give us quickly an update?
Uhuru, Comrade Tafari.
Uhuru.
So an update, I'm just combining from the, combining updates from the.
He's muffled, his voice is muffled, it's hard to hear.
Can you check your mic, Comrade?
Yes, can you hear me?
It's hard to hear you.
Yes, so
Uhuru, is that Comrade Patricia?
Yes, I could jump in here to say that, yes, so far we are on 440. So I'd like to thank comrades Tafari, Secretary General Luwezi, Chairman, Penny, Kat, Len, Michelle, MZ, M. Parker, Bakary, and Sandy. I haven't seen what's in Facebook. But yes, so thank you for those. Uhuru.
Right. Uhuru, comrades, Uhuru. Yes, so the people united can never be defeated. So I want to go to the next question, and this was directed to the chairman, and it's from Kluma Kayimpi. Kluma Kayimpi. I am sure I am almost there, because this is in isiXhosa. This is an isiXhosa name. So I try, because I'm right here in occupied Tanzania in South Africa, even though isiXhosa is not my primary dialect, So Kluma Kayimpi says, what can be done to unite African people to rebuild this continent, because this continent has suffered a lot under the hands of the colonizers. And then second part, it says, how so we get rid of tribalism and these imaginary borders to ensure that there is a free movement among Africans and begin to trade among each other. So that was from Utluma. And then I know Comrade Renata just mentioned, stated that Uhuru revolution is the only solution. So Uhuru, Chairman.
I want to thank Chuma for raising those two questions. I think they're extremely important, and they go to the heart of what this webinar is all about. Again, this is a webinar done by the African Socialist International. We're an organization that assumes responsibility for the liberation of our people, for uniting our people. And what will unite our people is the fact that we are united as an organization. In this meeting right now, there are Africans who were born in Congo, in U.S., in South Africa, in Haiti, and various other places around the world. And this is a part of the process of unifying Africa and African people. That's what the African Socialist International is. And it's not just some abstract conceptual unity. It is a practical unity. It is a practice unity that would have us building projects that unite Africans across the globe. We do that in practice. We have divided up the whole world into different regions where different African committees and leaders have responsibility to win our unity. And I just want to say that also the most successful African leaders that we've had, I speak specifically to the continent at this moment, because in many ways, the continent is a place where ethnicity has played such a serious role in the hands of our oppressors. But we saw Lumumba was successful as opposed to all the others that he was in contention with in Congo in the elections, because he united all the Africans there. And the same thing was true with Nkrumah. Even in the electoral process, while all the others were organizing around ethnicity, he organized everybody. And the same thing was true with Sobukwe in South Africa. So this is not some purely abstract question that has no history of being realized. And then, of course, the most outstanding, incredible movement again that we've seen that brought 11 million African people together from around the world was led by Universal Negro Improvement and African Communities League. So I'm saying that's what we have to do. That's what we were organized to do. That's what the participants in this meeting must be committed to, and that's why people should join the African People's Socialist Party. The borders have to go. The borders must go. And this is a part of the project of the African Socialist International. So that's about, like what I am able to contribute to that from Comrade Chuma. Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you, Chairman.
Uhuru, we are at time for this section.
All right, Uhuru, thank you, Comrade. Yeah, but then I just want to, so we're gonna go to the next segment. But then I do want to encourage people, comrades. I can see here in terms of the, let me go back there. Okay.
I didn't answer your question, Director Fari, on proxy neocolonialism.
Yes, yeah. Go ahead, Luwezi.
Yeah, I'll be very quick. When I say the proxy neocolonialism, just the crisis of so severe that imperialism, they try to reform neocolonialism itself. So what they've done in the Congo, they decide to rely on more than one state, one neocolonial state. So they have to rely on colonial state, neocolonial state of Congo, of Rwanda, of Uganda, of Burundi, or to a certain extent to South Africa and Angola.
That's what they're doing. And but also what they've done, they decided who is the boss. Under Mobutu, Mobutu was the boss. He was the leader for neocolonialism in the Congo for a long time. The United States decided that you cannot be in power in Congo if you don't bow to the interests of neocolonial state in Rwanda and Uganda. And this includes allowing uh, permanent neocolonial state from Uganda and Rwanda in the Congo in many forms, officially and sometimes unofficially in terms of militias and things like that, and also in terms of economics, parts of the eastern Congo, imperialism, United States, Britain, they're all of them. They've been working to tie to Rwanda, another part of eastern Congo to tie up to Uganda. And when you hear all these killings, 10 million people killed, people displaced, these are the manifestation of basically of this proxy neocolonialism. And they also involved us to a certain extent, not just killing people and putting people in a displaced camps, but also transfer of population. And particularly in the case of Rwanda, that's something that has been happening for a while. So in short, it means that the consciousness of the African working class, particularly like in the Congo, has to be has to reflect that reality that there is no revolution in the Congo if it does not happen in Rwanda, it doesn't happen in Uganda. It just becomes like one part of a contradiction. You can't deal with the Congo's contradiction if you don't deal with Rwanda contradiction. So the struggle has to be done to win everybody to African revolution, to isolate the people, particularly like in Rwanda, to be united under the leadership of the oppressor there, with Paul Kagame. So we go win people in Rwanda to African revolution, not to win them to neo-colonial or proxy neo-colonial solution that Kagame is selling to the people. They are the same for Uganda. So basically, the struggle for one Africa has to be explained deeper so that people can see that we are part of one revolution and we must eradicate parasitic capitalism in its form of neo-colonialism. As the question someone asked earlier on, how do you unite Africans against the tribalism? So basically, the allegiance of everybody has to be to Africa, to African revolution, the African working class. And this is where we're going to fight opportunism, not just in Rwanda and Uganda, in the Congo, but rather African itself. So it is something that we need probably to come back to it, to really deepen it, so people understand it. We're fighting first to eradicate the universal contradiction, which means that the African nation, basically the continent of Africa, has to be free from parasitic capitalism or any forms. And around that, we can deal with every other contradictions that we may have, like tribalism, because tribalism is basically the defense of colonialism. That's what it is. Because when you put tribalism first, you're not fighting against parasitic capitalism. You're just fighting for your opportunism to be covered up in the name of the struggle for your tribe. Because there is no tribal economy like you can speak like in South Africa. There is no Zulu economy. There is no Yoruba economy. There is no Tutsi economy. Things like that. Is that African? Basically, you have a colonial economy, and different African leaders to cover up the participation to that economy. They will say, okay, the Northern are in power. Next time it has to be the Southern. This tribe in power is our turn. So they create things like Congolite, Ivorite, and things like that. So we need probably to come back to this question. That's really profound because it's going to help us clarify the question of African nationality, African nation, and expose all forms of opportunism, basically, that manifests itself through tribalism and through neocolonialism, through proxy wars and things like that. Yeah, these are some of the things I want to just quickly have to say. So they fight for one Africa, for the power in the hands of one united African working class, and this way we will change the world and end all these humiliation that we go through every day.
Uhuru S. Luwezi. And speaking of that, actually, in terms of consolidating the struggle of African people all over the world, I am going just to, for the next segment, to go ahead and just to make an appeal, actually to call for African people out there to join the African People's Socialist Party. So this is the actually practical application of African internationalism in terms of advancing our revolution, our struggle everywhere, wherever we are. This is the African People's Socialist Party, and it expresses itself across the world as the African Socialist International. We are building in the United States of America. We are there in North America, in Mexico, in Canada, and also there in the Caribbean, in Europe, in Africa, on the African continent, and the party keeps growing all over the place. So we saw comments of people coming from all over the world. But then, like the chairman said, this is not some kind of just social media thing that is happening, but then it's part of the process of making or advancing the African revolution through the African People's Socialist Party. So I am calling on people, African people who are here watching this to join the African People's Socialist Party. You can become a member wherever you are. You don't have to be where I'm at in occupied Tanzania or in London, whereas Luwezi and Tondorai are, but then you can join wherever you are. We want African people to fight against colonialism, to fight for the revolution wherever you are. If you want to be a member of the African People's Socialist Party, go to apspuhuru.org, apspuhuru.org. And actually you can get material and read more from things that S. Luwezi has written, the chairman himself, what he has written. You can go to the burningspear.com, go to the burningspear.com, you'll read more about the party, our activities. We build economic institutions. Actually, we do have a principle that says that we fight for dual and contending power. We say that the politics and the economics are one. This is where a revolution is not something that we simply talk about. We fight and we work for the revolution. So we're calling on you to come and participate, because there is no African revolution without the conscious participation of African people ready to fight and take this thing on. So join the African People's Socialist Party, go to the apspuhuru.org and go through the process of becoming a member of the APSP, which is the vanguard of the International African Revolution. So Uhuru. So comrades, I really want to express appreciation. We're gonna go to the next segment, which is announcements. But then the first announcement that I would like to hear from is the one on the call for funds, the appeal for funds that has been made. Just want to know how much has been raised, and just to make sure that we were able to reach our goal today. Because as African people together, united, we can be able to accomplish everything. So I don't know, Comrade Tonderai or Patricia, could you please give us an update of where we are?
Uhuru, I'll jump in then. So yes, I can just say thank you. We're at 440. So thank you to Tafari, Secretary General, Chairman, Penny, Kat, Len, Michelle, MZ, M. Parker, Bakary, Sandy, myself, Lisa, and Tunderai. So, I mean, £60, I think we can do this. The whole point of today is around making Belgium pay reparations which is due to African people. It's a just demand, and this is a struggle. As the chairman speak to, we've been working on the whole reparations question, even when reparations was unpopular, and other organizations are holding it up now, and as the chairman rightly says, through opportunistic reasons are speaking to reparations. But we have the politics, we have the theory and the practice. So to continue this practice and to grow and develop what we're doing, to complete this, it's just another £60. So we can have 6 people, say, make £10 donation each, or £10, that £10 contribution to this work.
Do we have the donation from Facebook?
I haven't got Facebook. I have Zoom, and I've also got access to PayPal. Oh, and we've had YouTube.
So, Uhuru, are we able to get access to that? Maybe perhaps you can check that, and also see a comment from Comrade Odam Mazamela. I don't know if you can see that, Comrade Patricia.
Okay, let's have a.
Yeah, but then definitely it's 60 euros, comrades. We can do that. So I'm sure there's someone out there who can just settle this, and then we'll be able to reach our goal.
So thank you. I'll add that, which is about £34. Thank you.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll come back to you before the end then, Uhuru.
All right, Uhuru, comrade. Uhuru, so I do want to go ahead and make a few announcements. And the first announcement that I want to make is that in 2023 we're going to be having our first international Congress of the African Socialist International, African People's Socialist Party, and it will be hosted by the African People's Socialist Party, Occupy Tanzania, right here in South Africa. So just look out for that. The APSP 8th Congress, which will be held here in Occupy Tanzania in 2023. And then on next year, the party, which was founded in 1972 by our very own Chairman Omali Yeshitela, will be celebrating its 50th anniversary. And this is going to be an all year round celebration, commemoration through works of the party manifesting themselves all over the world. So just look out for the 50th anniversary celebration that will take place on the year 2022. And also every Sunday, and I know it is 2 p.m. Central African time, the Chairman Omali Yeshitela, he always goes live on the Omali Taught Me program, Sunday Studies. So tune in on his Facebook page, which is Chairman Omali Yeshitela, on every Sunday, 2 p.m. Central African time, and also every Friday at 9 p.m. Central African time, as Luwezi Secretary General Luwezi Kinshasa, which is actually 8 p.m. British Standard Time, if I'm not mistaken with that. As Luwezi, he has a French program, the Africa Must Unite, in French, and then on Saturday, Luwezi goes live again at 1 p.m. Central African time, and which is actually noon, 12 p.m. British Standard Time. Luwezi Kinshasa does the English program of the Africa Must Unite. And then also look out for the African National Women's Organization, which is a constituent organization of the APSP. It will be having its annual convention on the dates of the 10th and 11th of July on this year. So just go there to the African National Women's Organization Facebook page. You'll get the link of how to register for this convention. And also in September, just look out for information pertaining to the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, another constituent organization of mass organization of the Uhuru Movement, the African People's Socialist Party. It will be having its convention in September of this year. So those are just some of the announcements, but there are a lot more activities that the African People's Socialist Party is engaged in all over the world. So just go to our African People's African People's Socialist Party USA Facebook page, and also the African People's Socialist Party Africa Region Facebook page to get more activities. And you can also visit our apspuhuru.org website to get more information and updates on activities related to this Revolutionary Vanguard Party. So I really want to express appreciation to all that engaged and participated in this program, those that shared, those that liked, commented, asked the questions, and those that made the donations to this program. I want to express appreciation to all of you and say venceremos. We are winning One Africa, One Nation, and would like to call for our chairman, Omali Yeshitela, to come through and give us the closing remarks. Uhuru, chairman.
Uhuru, Comrade Tafari, thank you so much. And I want to just express my appreciation to all of the presenters and everybody else who has participated in this meeting on today. I think it's an extremely important meeting that we've just had. And if nothing else, hopefully what this meeting has done is to express the absolute necessity for African people ourselves to take possession of our struggle for our freedom, for our happiness, and for the return of the resources that's been stolen from us over the centuries. And in order to do this, of course, we have to have organization. And we know that just any kind of organization won't do. It's going to have to be an organization based on revolutionary principles. I hope also that one of the things that we've got from this meeting is an understanding of the critical role that Africa has played in the development of the whole capitalist social system. That we and the colonization of Africa and African people has been central to the development of capitalism, as it's known, that's colonial capitalism, and also for the development of Europe. And that despite the fact that Europe has, from their perched on the power of African oppression and exploitation, they have defined civilization as Europe and European. Of course, they have defined democracy as Europe and Europeans, but the reality is that theirs is a democracy and civilization that rests upon the foundation of the horrible exploitation, oppression against African people. And we've heard some examples of it during this meeting, and they should be taken seriously, these examples, not just as some kind of historical footnotes, but as part of the ingredients that went into the development of this whole social system. And that alone should help us to understand why integrating into it is not something that we should be fighting for, or trying to cajole it to do better by us is not something that we should be involved in, and that we have to end this system altogether. And comrades, brothers and sisters, I'm also, I think it's important for us to recognize that this is our time, that this whole social system that was founded on colonial slavery and genocide against masses of people around the world is expressing a severe crisis. It makes itself manifest in 1,000 ways. And while some people have a relatively easy to see that this crisis is due to African people taking and fighting for political freedom and taking back our resources, some people may not understand that this crisis also that has been imposed on the world represents itself even in the form of the environment. And what people, Europeans, like to talk about as the environment. And what they characterize as the environment, of course, is something that does not include human beings and us. And so we play a critical role in reshaping the understanding of the entire world. And to do that, of course, we have to take our freedom, and we have to be conscious of the fact that in taking our freedom, we're fighting for a whole new kind of social system that for the first time, Africa would be able, well, not for the first time, in a positive way, Africa will become the defining economic force in the whole world. And that will give us the kind of society of freedom, liberation, and African working class, along with all the working peoples of the world coming to power. So thank you so much, and Izwe Letu I Africa, and one Africa, one nation, Uhuru.
Uhuru. Thank you, Chairman. Uhuru. So we have reached the end of our program. Again, I'd like to express appreciation to everyone that participated in this. So just bring that up. One Africa, one nation, forward with the revolution. Uhuru.